The tent you see me setting up here is called the Wildland Desert Cruiser 140. It's the 140 model, as there is a 120 model as well. It's a very low profile rooftop tent at 18 centimeters tall, and it's pretty lightweight for its class in the aluminium roof tent world at about 65 kilograms. Mine's not completely standard because I've got a couple of solar panels mounted on the top side there, which is the nice thing about a hard shell roof tent. You can put stuff on top, and this one comes with a couple of load bars and they can support up to 100 kilos. My name's Mike and welcome to another video. If you're a regular viewer or if you're a new viewer, welcome. I've had this tent for about 1 year now, and I've been using it in a whole range of conditions throughout the winter, from temperatures as low as minus 25 degrees C all the way up to the summer now, where we've just had temps of around 28 degrees C, which is warm for this part of the world. And mosquitoes, flies, midges, all kinds of things, wind, rain, storms. So I think it's about time I can give it a review, and I'm going to give it a solid 8.5 out of 10. And I'm going to show you why. First off, it's really windy today, and it actually brings me to the first thing I don't like about the tent, and that's around the other side, and it's the straps. And if you're using this tent in high winds, the straps are going to start vibrating. It can be fixed very easily. Just get some Velcro straps. You can strap those around the aluminium pole, put those around the straps when you go to bed at night if it's windy, and you know you're not going to have a problem. So it's not particularly a big deal. Another thing about those straps is they don't stitch the ends, so if you loosen it too much, it can't come out. It's a very minor thing, but it's those kind of details that mean that I don't have to do that after I've spent 2,200 euros on a rooftop tent, which is not cheap. Another aspect of the tent that was a problem for me was the mesh material itself. On the advertisement it said it's designed for Nordic climates, and that's not true. The mesh is fine against mosquitoes and horseflies and anything big, and even knot. We have like a biting midge here in Sweden called knot, which is like a black fly with incisors that bites you. They can't get through. But there's an even smaller fly, and it's called svin. The pronunciation might be a bit wrong, but in Canada they call them no-see-ums. It's a tiny midge. It's so small, like a pinhead. And I had a situation where I was camping in the heat of summer by somewhere kind of moist like this. You've got like a body of water just behind me. This would be rife with mosquitoes and flies if it wasn't for the wind. The svin will go straight through that mesh, and I've woken up with hundreds of them in the tent before when I've had the windows down. So at certain times of year, if I'm in a place where I know those flies are going to be kind of really bad, I have to zip everything up shut, and it gets very humid in the tent because the material is more of a synthetic material and it doesn't have such a high breathability. Now I like that because in the winter, which is predominantly what it is here in the north of Sweden, I can heat the tent up with my diesel heater and it retains the warmth very well. But in the summer, when you need breathability, it might be more of an issue for you if you have little flies like that can get through and you want the windows down all the time. If you don't have those flies, it's no problem. Open the windows, the tent will breathe great. But in my case, I have to kind of manage that a bit in the summer. The ladder itself can't be stored in the tent if you intend on keeping like a decent mattress in there and bedding. And it basically just hooks either side of the fabric here like that. I've taken my mattress out of this tent and I've got an X-Bed Mega Mat Duo in here. Now if you blow the mattress up and you move a lot when you sleep, the material of the mattress pushes out a bit here, and it does that. The tent actually rubs on this rubbery material here that they've coated this hook on the ladder with, and it can do this. So it's something to bear in mind. I fixed it one camp by just putting a sock over here and here, and it didn't do it anymore, but I guess you could figure that out. But on the newer tents you buy, you might get this if you buy this tent after this review, there's a stainless steel hook there that this hooks onto, so they eliminated that further down the line. You'll notice that the door opens downward like that, and that's going to be a major problem for some people. They're going to hate that. For me, I used to hate it when I first bought the tent, but after winter camping for 7 months in the snow, it is amazing, because when I'm setting the tent up, I can throw this in like that, and I don't have to take my huge winter boots off, which are a pain in the ass, and I can get in and I can sit in the tent like that whilst being covered in snow and being a bit wet, and I can set the tent up and not get my bedding wet, which is really cool. So the tent measures about 140 on the inside, and it's a very, very comfortable tent. In fact, me, my wife and my son sleep in here. And when we go out, he's only 3 years old, so you know, he's not that big, but he's usually over there in that corner. My wife's head's there and her feet are usually here, and my feet are there, my head and shoulders are usually there. And in all honesty, it might sound strange, but it's extremely comfortable. We all sleep really well. Normally the first couple of nights you're adjusting, and then once you get into the swing of it and you've been out for a couple of weeks, you know, you're down like a light, really, because you've been doing lots of stuff in the day. Or, you know, if she goes for a walk, you know, I'm like making sure she's in the distance. Get the blow up doll out, 10 psi. It's my holiday too, actually. You have a zip just above me here, and this is where you access these load bars, and this can obviously then be used to take the tent down. You've got 2 clips that you just expand out like that, and you zip that up. There's no mesh up there, so if you open that and you're in a very mozzie infested zone, they're just going to come in. You do have obviously mesh here. I guess some people want to know about zips. I've had no issues with the zips. I've got a 3-year-old and he seems to operate them pretty aggressively. You know, even the door itself, even if the door's down like that, you just have to kind of make sure it's on the inside and hold it with one hand, and then once you've got it going, it just zips up pretty easy like that. So zips are always a thing. Are they going to fail? I mean, I've been operating these obviously for over a year now, just about, or maybe just under, I can't flipping remember, and yeah, they seem to be okay. This is another vent that can't really be closed. It goes like this, and I've had no issues with flies yet getting through here. Obviously there's mesh behind it, but you know, I'm talking about those tiny flies I mentioned earlier. They don't seem to make their way to the back of the tent here between the aluminium shell, and you can see some Velcro failing there where the stitching's gone, so I have to fix that myself. But I leave this open all the time, and I usually just tuck those in like that. You have 3 entrances, so this can be a door. If you open that up, you've got another one exactly the same behind the camera there. The tent comes with an LED strip light. You can actually take it off, and it's USB. I wish they'd made that wire a bit longer, but I sort of got round it with a small extension cable. One thing to notice is you have loops everywhere, kind of every 12 inches you've got a little loop, and they're all the way around the roof of the tent, and that's because you can buy an insulated inner tent to go in here. You might ask why I don't do that if I'm someone who's winter camping all the time in such cold conditions, but the reason I don't do that is because it'll be harder to dry out the tent and get rid of the condensation with insulation, because if I put an insulative barrier here, the condensation will build in between, the ice really will build in between, and I'll have to heat the tent much longer to get rid of that. I think it also affects it putting it away. It's much easier from a maintenance perspective to have just one layer to remove the condensation from with a diesel heater and then put the tent away, rather than have to take some inner tent out, dry that separately, put it back in. And my sleeping bag goes down to about -23 degrees C, so I don't really need to worry so much about that, and I know I have a secondary bag around me anyway if the temperatures are lower than that, so it's easier to take the bag in, dry that, rather than mess around with the tent so much. So you'll notice I've got my bedding in the tent all the time. I don't have my pillow in here because the pillow's a bit too bulky, but this is a double sleeping bag, a Constellation Luxe double. It's about 3 season. Coldest temps it can probably go to is about 2 degrees, so it's going to come out of here soon and start being replaced by warmer stuff. I can close the tent with this bedding in, and it doesn't need to be in the Jeep. And the Cherokee's not a big vehicle, although I've got a drawer system and everything. The rear seats are still in. It's still a family camping adventure vehicle, which means I really don't want bulky things like big sleeping bags and lots of bedding in the vehicle, because it takes up a ton of space. So being able to have this in the tent is a big plus. And because they designed the tent to be so low profile at 18 centimeters, you have to do some rejigging in the tent to be able to fold it away with bedding easily, but it will cost you more money to be able to do it. So we've got the bag, we have got a little sort sort of mattress bag here. So this comes with the tent, this one, and this one is the MAXX Bed Mega Mat Duo with the 8.5 R rating. Now this isn't enough on its own with the tent having no floor in temperatures below -20 degrees C. You will still freeze. The problem is the wind and the cold will get through between the roof and the tent, and it will start ripping the warmth straight out of this here, and your body won't be able to warm it up. Below that I have a layer of Mylar. I leave all this here in the summer as well, by the way, it doesn't make a difference. But the layer of Mylar just really helps a bit of reflective heat and keeping the heat inside this mat. But again, the Mylar and this are not enough below -20 degrees C. You need extra insulation for that. So in the summer I inflate this, and that's kind of what I use, and the rest of it just stays underneath it the whole year round, but I don't use it. So below here I've got just a Thermarest double 140 size inflatable mat, and I just inflate this in the winter as well as this one, and this provides a very good air gap between the bottom and this. And I've been in temperatures as low as -28 degrees C and slept and had a very warm cozy night until the morning with this inflated. So having that extra air gap, and this is about 10 centimeters when inflated, so it's pretty big. You do need a pretty big air gap. Below that I've got a piece of wood, a 1mm piece of wood, just because it kind of gives the tent a bit more of a solid floor. When you get the tent, the mattresses are so hard that they're kind of like a floor in themselves. So really what you need to do if you're going to start swapping mattresses and doing something like I've done is put a piece of wood there. But below that I just have a piece of condensation mat as well. It's actually unnecessary, but I just put it in there to put an air gap between the piece of wood and the material below it, just in case of any moisture getting in there. You know, sometimes there's so much condensation, you know, it can drip down and go here, so you do have to kind of think about that a little bit. But in the winter, normally, as I said, the condensation is all just, it's ice. The whole wall is ice, really. But that works really well. That's what I've run with the last winter and this summer, and I'll be running next winter with that setup as well, and it seems to be doing pretty good. I've seen a few videos of people actually selling and getting away from this tent because they like to have a lot of bedding in it, or they want their bedding in it, but they haven't found a solution. I've found a great solution here, and you can see I've got a pretty bulky sort of duvet-like mattress in there. I mean, you can sleep under both layers of this like a duvet, and you still have that cotton fabric feel below you on the inflatable mat, so it does feel like a bed at home. You know, it's very comfortable. And if you inflate both of those mats there, it's pretty damn cozy. But I mean, an electric pump, that's what I use. So this little one here is inflate, which you just push that in and inflate it, and this one here is deflate, so you just pull that out and you put the bit of radiator hose over there and just suck all the air out, and it really doesn't take very long, just a couple of minutes, and you've made this very flat. And these ones, you don't need to suck the air out at all of this mat. You just literally loosen the valve, and the air, the weight of this stuff on top of it just seems to push the air out of it anyway. So it is a very simple system, and it's pretty hassle-free, and everything can be put away pretty quick. So when I winter camp, it is fundamental for me to be able to get rid of condensation in the tent. So you would have seen me on previous overlanding videos using a diesel heater that just plumbs into the back of the tent, and I don't have that on all night because it's very noisy, it's a waste of fuel, and I also hate the sound of it, and I can't sleep to it. I much rather sleep to the sound of the trees blowing and everything else when I'm out here. So I use that in the morning just to take away the condensation inside the tent, and it's functioned fantastically through the whole winter. Because I have a garage where I can't open the tent fully, only a very small amount, drying the tent off as best as possible before I get home is a real key. So by getting rid of the condensation inside with the diesel heater, which takes about 20 minutes, I can then close the tent up with all my bedding in and not have to worry about that. And when I drive along, any snow left on the rain fly and all that kind of stuff seems to get blown out. and when I get back I've basically got a tent that's ready to roll again for the next trip or the next outing, and I haven't had to do anything with it. And that for me has been a massive game changer. You know, winter camping in the past with canvas tents or even poly cotton tents and things with just kind of a lot of more organic material in, I've always been very conscious of mould, and I've always struggled with mould a little bit too, especially with canvas. So the way this tent's designed, the fact that it has no floor, water can't build up underneath the tent, I really like it. I think it's a fantastic design. So as you can see, the tent's really easy to put away. You're just deflating the mattress with the pump, closing it up, making sure no fabrics between the two seals of the clam face. And one thing to note is that rubber seal is glued on. In all honesty, even if it fails, it's not really doing anything. That's one of the things I don't understand about the design, and I think it could have been done maybe differently, because water's still able to get underneath like that. I mean, even if water gets through between the two layers of the clamshell, it's just hitting the waterproof fabric, which can get wet anyway and be put away wet because it dries when you drive it and the airflow goes around the whole tent. So the reality is it's not sealed up really. I guess it's just to stop direct impact going in. But you could find another solution for that, like just a hard piece of rubber or anything else would have worked better. But one thing to note is you will destroy that rubber seal if you winter camp and you don't store the vehicle in a garage, because what can happen is if you have water and stuff between the two layers and it freezes and it glues the rubber seal together, when you open it, it will just tear straight away. So you might need to get a stick with silicone and treat the inside of that rubber seal if you're winter camping in cold conditions like me and you're not storing your vehicle in a warm place and you've got those temperature fluctuations turning water into ice. So it's just something to bear in mind. But anyway, this has just been my review of the tent. I don't really know what else I can say about it. I really like it. I think it's a brilliant design. The only things that really ever bother me about things like this is, can I buy the parts to repair stuff? Can I buy those latches? Can I buy those hinges? I don't care about the load bars. I'll make those out of aluminium extrusion. I can make them stronger than the originals. You know, can I get the rubber seal? Can I get replacement parts and things like that? That's the kind of stuff that that I want to be able to get, and I don't know of a way of doing that yet. That's easy without contacting Wildlands directly, and yeah, it seems a little bit expensive. I know a lot of this stuff can be bought on Amazon anyway, and that's pretty much what I will probably do if parts fail. But as of yet, nothing looks like it's going to fail, but I intend to keep that tent on there for many years to come because I think it's an excellent tent. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again in another one. Take care.
Let's go home, GP.